Stanley Cornell, who was born in 1920 in Elmira, New York, was also not a true orphan, though he too would ultimately ride the train to a new home. Stanley's father, a World War I veteran, had health problems associated with his wartime mustard gas exposure. After his wife died of tuberculosis in 1924, Floyd Cornell was unable to properly care for Stanley, Stanley's younger brother Victor, and sister Eloise. Stanley was a few months shy of his 5th birthday when his mother, Lottie, died. He still remembers how she cried out for her children near the end.
When Mom was in her room crying and hollering and wanting, she said, "Stan, Vic, please come see me," and crying, night and day practically. We put this, and the window was up so high, about there on up, down below is not. I got the wagon up there, and then there's an orange crate that I set inside of the wagon so I could climb up to the window and get in the window because the door was locked to her room.
He believes his relatives may have tried to keep him away from his mother because tuberculosis is contagious. As a young boy, however, he didn't understand.
I crawled up in there, out to the inside the window, and I helped my brother up. Then we both went over to her bed, and she held her hand and was crying. And I don't remember what she had to say, because I was too young, I think, and also she was crying so. But I think what she told us, she knew she was dying.
After his mother died, he sometimes felt like no one was looking after them, especially as his father tried to work while struggling with his own health problems.
2 ladies came out in a big limousine to us. It looked like a big, and we didn't have a car, of course, but it looked like a big limousine. And they come in and talk to Dad, and then they talk to us and ask us if we was happy. And I can remember saying, "Not really, no, not really." You know, I didn't want to complain, but that was true because we weren't too happy.
The boys were taken by the Children's Aid Society, while an aunt took in their younger sister, then a toddler. At the orphanage, children were separated by gender. Even on the playground, a tall brick wall separated the boys from the girls.
My brother and I was separated when we was in there for those 6 months, but in between the houses, they had about 15 feet of chicken wire so that we could get together. And every day at noon, Vic would come from his side, and I'd meet him down front, and we'd talk through the fence.
The children were given sparse and simple meals, milk, bread, or soup. Occasionally, they were given a piece of fruit.
Then they'd come by before we finished, and they'd leave an apple or a banana, orange, you know, for each one of us. And if you went outside, out of the building to out in the yard, the bullies would take that away from you. It was not a very pleasant place to be at times. However, it was a place that we stayed warm, you know, at night, and had some change of clothes and things like that.
Before Stanley and Vic Cornell ended up with the Lutie, Texas farm family that would end up providing them a wonderfully happy childhood, they were sent away from a half-dozen other households.
Well, we lived in 6 different homes that rejected us after the first month or 2 or 3 months, sent us back because they didn't want to keep us. And I don't know what the reason was. Yeah, I was too young to know whether we couldn't get along with their baby sister or brother, or was mean to them, or I don't know what.
Stanley Cornell, now a Colorado resident, counts himself and his brother Vic, now living in Idaho, among those who were snatched from poverty and woe. The man who would raise the 2 boys as his own had never planned to take in a child from the orphan train that arrived in the Texas panhandle town of Wellington one December night in 1926. It was a neighbor who suggested it.
He was in town that day. He bought a new Model T, and he needed flaps on his windows on his car. So the farmer that rode in with him says, "Mr. Deidre, you got 2 girls, 10 and 13. You've always wanted boys, at least a boy." Dad, "Yeah, I'd like to have a boy." So he said, "Let's stop by."
The children from the train were lined up. An agent traveling with the children encouraged the farmer to take both boys, as Vic clung to his big brother's hand and cried. They only had each other and had already been to 6 other homes where it hadn't worked out. J.L. Deeger agreed to take both. His wife, waiting at home with the girls, had no idea her husband had even stopped to see the children from the train.
Mom was wanting to sew. She liked to sew, but she's always done, she wanted to sing her sewing machine is what she wanted. And she thought that was the day that he was going to get one for her. Well, he drives up and he goes in the house. He says, Mom, you and the girls go out there and get the groceries out of the back seat. And it's still snowing and blowing, so they go out there. And when one of the girls opened the door, they see the movement of the blanket and some voices, and they jump back, and one of them squealed. It scared her. And finally, one of them pulled the blanket off, and there was this 2 tow-headed, white-headed kids there, eating candy. They picked us up and carried us in the house just like it was worth $1 million. And boy, they gave us a good home. That was home.
Years later, after serving in World War II, Stanley would reunite with his birth father. His sister had found her brother several years earlier. Stanley let his birth father know that his childhood had turned out wonderfully. They kept in touch over the years, but he always saw his adoptive parents as his real parents.